All right, today we're going on an epic journey. It's a story that stretches across 4,000 years through fallen empires, revolutions, and the incredible quest of a people searching for a place to call home. This is the explainer on the long walk of the Baloch.
The best way to understand the entire history of the Baloch people is through this one powerful idea, a long, exhausting walk. And this wasn't just a simple migration. We're talking about a multi-generational struggle for the basics, survival, identity, and a little bit of sovereignty, stretching from their ancient homeland all the way to the land that would eventually be named after them.
So, where does a walk like that even begin? Well, for this, we have to rewind the clock way back, thousands of years, to a region up near the Caspian Sea. It's here that a series of powerful empires started to exert the kind of pressure that would completely change the destiny of the Baloch people forever. And the name itself gives us a huge clue about where the story starts. The ancestors of the Baloch were known as the Balochic. They were an Indo-Iranian people from a region called Balochagan. So this is our starting point. This is their ancestral home, before all these external forces pushed them to begin their long march south and east. And what they faced was just sheer, unrelenting pressure. For centuries, one empire after another, from the Persian Sassanids to the Arab Caliphates and then later the Buid and Seljuk Turks, waged these incredibly brutal campaigns against them. And we're not just talking about minor conflicts. Historical accounts describe these as genocidal acts. It forced the Baloch to just keep moving, pushing them out of their homeland and into the harsh deserts of Kerman and Sistan. Right? So, it really all comes down to perspective, doesn't it? This is how medieval Persian and Arab historians, the guys writing the history for the conquering empires, saw the Baloch. Because the Baloch fought so fiercely against being controlled and assimilated, they were painted as these lawless bandits. But for the Baloch themselves, this was just a desperate fight for their independence and their entire way of life. But, this long walk wasn't just about fleeing persecution. It was also about searching for an opportunity. And after centuries of wandering, a power vacuum in the 17th century finally gave the Baloch the chance to stop walking and, well, to start building something of their own. So how did that happen? Well, think about it. By the mid-1600s, the two giants dominating the region were both in serious decline. The Safavid Empire over in Persia was basically falling apart from the inside, and the Mughal Empire in India was totally exhausted from internal power struggles. This created a perfect storm, really. A moment of weakness that a well-organized group could take advantage of. And oh, did they seize it. In 1666, a confederacy of Baloch tribes drove the weakened Mughal forces right out of the strategic town of Kalat. And this was huge. For the first time, after more than 1,000 years of pressure and migration, the Baloch had a sovereign state of their own, the Khanate of Kalat. Their long walk had finally led them to a home. And this kicked off what you could really call a golden age. Under their greatest leader, Mir Nasir Khan the Great, the Khanate was totally transformed in the 18th century. He took it from a loose group of tribes and turned it into a powerful, organized state. He built a real army, he secured the borders with a historic treaty with Afghanistan, and he expanded Baluchistan to its largest size ever. It was a time of real stability and prosperity. But of course, just as the Baloch state was reaching its peak, a new and far more formidable power arrived on the scene. The 19th century brought the British Empire, and Balochistan found itself tragically caught right in the crossfire of a global rivalry. And this is where things get tangled up in what historians call the Great Game. The British, who were running India, were absolutely terrified of Tsarist Russia expanding south towards the warm water ports of the Indian Ocean. And Balochistan? It was sitting right in the middle, between Persia, Afghanistan, and British India. Suddenly, its location, once a blessing, became a terrible curse. And this is where the story just turns tragic. I mean, look at this. The British signed formal treaties with the Khanate, and Article 3 of this 1876 treaty has this explicit promise to respect the independence of Kalat, which is just another name for Kalat. A clear, direct commitment. But that promise, it was about to be broken in a big way. And here's how they broke it. Instead of respecting its independence, Britain started to systematically take Balochistan apart, piece by piece. Using these so-called boundary commissions, they just carved it up to suit their own strategic needs. The Goldsmith Line, it gave a huge chunk of western Balochistan to Persia. The Durand Line, it handed over northern territories to Afghanistan. And then finally, they just took direct control of the most important areas, like Quetta and the Bolan Pass, leaving the Khanate as a powerless protectorate. The sovereign state was completely dismembered. But wait, the story isn't over yet. As the British Empire began to unravel after World War II, this brief, tantalizing glimmer of hope appeared. For a moment, it really seemed like the Baloch might finally get back what they had lost.
Now, the crucial part here is the legal argument they made, which was brilliant. The Khan of Kalat argued that since the British were leaving, their treaties with the Khanate were basically void. And because that 1876 treaty recognized Kalat's independence before it became a protectorate, well, its sovereign status should be restored. And you know what? Amazingly, the British agreed.
So get this, on August 11th, 1947, that's 3 whole days before Pakistan even existed, the Khanate of Kalat officially declared its independence. A new state of Balochistan was born. And it was even recognized, at least at first, by its brand new neighbor, Pakistan, in what was called a standstill agreement. It really seemed like the long walk was finally, truly over. But that freedom, it lasted for exactly 227 days. That's it. This one, simple slide, it really says it all, doesn't it? Just a brief moment of sovereignty before it was all over. So what happened in those 227 days? Well, Pakistan, arguing that an independent Balochistan just wasn't viable, began applying immense pressure. When the Khan and the Baloch parliament refused to join, Pakistan used a strategy of strangulation. They convinced the rulers of Kalat's key provinces to break away and join Pakistan directly, which cut Kalat off from its neighbors and the sea. Geographically isolated, militarily surrounded, the Khan had no choice. On March 27, 1948, he signed the accession papers. Independence was gone. And all of that brings us right up to the present day. It brings us to the legacy of these historical forces, and to the fact that, for many, the long walk continues. So the final result of all this history is a fractured homeland. The carving up that started with the Great Game was now set in stone. The Baloch people, who are a single ethnic and cultural group, found themselves split across the borders of 3 different countries, Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, a nation without a unified state. And that brings us full circle, right back to that central idea. That long 4,000-year walk from the Caspian Sea led the Baloch to a land that actually bears their name. They built a state, they achieved independence, and then they lost it. And today, divided and still struggling, they continue their quest for self-determination. And so we have to end with a question. After a 4,000-year journey, has the long walk for a home truly ended, or is this just another chapter in a journey that's still going on?